Hello there, and welcome to Thank the Maker, a podcast about heroes, princesses, scoundrels, hokey religions, ancient weapons, and all things Star Wars. I'm Adam Russell.
And I'm Jason Chiodo.
Hey guys, it's Mike Forster. We are back in what seems like it's been weeks of us talking over various text messages, checking in on each other as half of us are on tour or going on tour or wrapping up work. It has been busy the last couple weeks. And in all of this time, it feels like we have not been able to dive back into the Mandalorian and Grogu, which is exciting today to talk about all of the details that we missed the first time, but noticed the second and third and fourth time viewing it.
Absolutely. We, like Mike said, have talked quite a bit early on, or maybe you didn't say that. Maybe that was in my head. I wasn't paying that much attention. I'm very tired. We did our initial reactions. We've talked about some different things. We've done a little posting. I think I made a reel about seeing it in a different format. We've kind of done those things. I've seen the film 5 times now. How many times have each of you guys seen it?
I'm on 3 myself. Jason, What about you?
3 for me as well, yeah. And I got to tell you, it honestly, without sounding, totally cliche at this point, it has gotten better each time for me. So
absolutely,
I'm enjoying it more and more, yeah.
So we're not going to do too terribly much in terms of like rehashing the entire story and everything, because I think we touched on enough in our initial reaction, Mike and me. But we did say that we were going to get kind of into like a sort of a heavily Den of Antiquities focused episode. But we'll also give you stolen plans here, and we've got some interesting stuff to talk about in terms of like reception and where this film fits in the culture and fits in, well, I guess the culture of Star Wars as well, internally as well as like externally, how it landed for the general public and everything. So I'm kind of excited to talk about some things. And for the bonus segment, I'm ready to stir the pot. There were some quotes recently from Gareth Edwards, director of Rogue One, about AI and how he feels about that and the future. Its role in filmmaking. It's blown up. It has blown up quite a bit. So I have thoughts. I'm sure the other 2 guys have thoughts here. I'm sure everyone who's listening has thoughts. So that'll be the bonus segment. And we'll make sure to piss off lots of people on both sides of the argument.
That sounds like every conversation I've had about AI. So perfect.
Nice. All right. Well, rather than delaying anything, you want to just get straight into stolen plans, Mike?
Yeah, but you got to hit that beautiful bumper.
What have you done with those plans?
Star Wars, The Mandalorian and Grogu. The official logline for this film is the evil empire has fallen. Imperial warlords remain scattered throughout the galaxy. As the fledgling New Republic works to protect everything the rebellion fought for, they have enlisted the help of legendary Mandalorian bounty hunter Din Djarin, played by Pedro Pascal, and his young apprentice Grogu, which, as a little shout out before we get into it, Jeremy Allen White, who went on to, I believe it was Kimmel, to talk about his experience being in Star Wars, because he was largely absent for a lot of the press tour, which I had noticed, given obviously we didn't really know how much of a role Rada played in the film, but it was pretty substantial. So it was cool to see him go on and kind of have his victory lap with by joining Star Wars. And he shouted out the Grogu animatronic team by, like, he literally pulled out a sheet of paper and was like, I've got to give, Mike Manziel, Don Dininger. Really cool to see an actor give the background props, the people who actually do make the sausage, to give them their moment on cable TV was pretty awesome. So shout out to, I'm sure Jeremy listens to the podcast now that he's now that he's part of Star Wars, you know what I mean?
On a similar note, it's great to hear Favreau talking openly about VFX and how it's about the relationship of special effects, visual effects, animatronics, stop motion, the whole gamut to bring something like this to life, rather than sort of like literally trying to hide visual effects, digital CGI work, like a lot of major productions have done the past several years. I would hope that they're hearing the feedback and the pushback from this one channel specifically on YouTube, Movie Rabbit Hole, that exposed all of that, is bringing to their doorstep, because these artists, these like hundreds of artists on every major film, deserve respect for the great work that they do.
100%. Premiered May 14, 2026 at the TCL Chinese Theater. I was there. Jason was down the street, and came out in most of the general public May 22nd, 2026 in the U.S. Directed by Jon Favreau, who is no stranger to The Mandalorian as the director who brought that story to life. Written by Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and Noah Clore. Produced by Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Kathleen Kennedy, and Ian Bryce. And the cinematography, which I think is interesting, is by David Klein, who's done many episodes of Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Skeleton Crew. No stranger to Star Wars, but also Kevin Smith's guy, because in Hollywood, you got to have a guy. He's been the DP on Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Clerks 2, Zack and Miri Make a Porno. So this is just old school, great cinematographer, can handle anything. And I think he actually crushed it for this movie, considering all of the technology that went into it. Felt like, as Jon Favreau said, they shot a lot of it similar, the same way. There were not a lot of external sets that they had built. There was still utilizing the volume, but this is someone who had a lot more experience with it, given that this technology is about almost a decade old at this point, which is pretty incredible. Edited by Rachel Goodlett-Gatz and Dylan Furshine, both known for their work on the Mandalorian series. Dylan was the first editor on Solo, a Star Wars story, which is cool. Music by, of course, Ludwig Göransson, 3-time Oscar winner for his scores of Black Panther, Oppenheimer, and Sinners, 2-time Emmy winner for his work on the Mandalorian series. Runtime is 132. Adam, thoughts? Jason, thoughts on the Göransson? He's always bringing something new, and I feel like I have heard like that is the new, in my opinion, the new rave scene, the Mon Mothma sound. Like the Shikari beat is like, this is Star Wars now, in my mind.
Yeah. That track slaps. Can I also say, I learned fairly recently could be 2 years. I don't know, I'm old. Ludwig Göransson.
It is Göransson. It's not Göransson.
Okay.
Göransson, yeah. Simone Yetch. She worked at Tested for a while. The queen of robots. You remember her?
Sure.
She's actually like a brilliant maker who's got a handful of products that have been coming out over the last several years that are great. Yetch is spelled Giertz. So obviously different phonetics for letters in Swedish.
Yes.
Sweden?
Sure. Yeah. I took 4 years of Spanish in high school, and I remember none of it. So that doesn't help me in this conversation, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But Ludwig, super talented guy.
Yeah.
Talking about the electronic textures that he's bringing into Star Wars, along with the Kiners doing sort of the same thing, or kind of changing up this kind of sonic language of what we think of when we think of Star Wars in a very interesting way, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And like, compatible with what the Kiners are doing, but with his own personality to it. And, like you referenced Andor, it's like the different tones, the different tiers, the different like flavors of Star Wars that are out there are all playing with the same kind of sonic space in ways that fit each one, I think, appropriately. And it's exciting because, John Williams may have just finished his last score ever. Who knows? The dude's like 190 years old. So who knows if we'll ever get more John Williams in Star Wars. So as sad as that is, it feels like we're in good hands going forward.
I agree. Let's see. Let's go to the cast. Starring Pedro Pascal as Din Djarin. Of course, Brendan Wayne as the physical actor of Din Djarin. Lateef Crowder, the physical stunt performer of Din Djarin, who really, I think both of these two, I said this in the last breakdown, we have seen, just because of the promo tour and all that, we have seen a lot of people wear Mando's armor. And it is so obviously Brendan Wayne when you see him in that kit. Like the cowboy swag, we talked about this. But
It's all in the hips.
It's all
in the hips.
Lateef Crowder, though. We got to give a shout out to Lateef. Unbelievable. This was his movie, if you're asking. And I think really the fact that they got top billing in the movie, I think that's a real big sign for Hollywood's respective of in the future of mocap and all these other things, where there's a lot of people who long in Hollywood have been the actual performer. The iconic scenes that you've seen are not sometimes, unfortunately, Harrison Ford. They're not Mark Hamill. They're, the iconic blasting out of the windows from the Force in Empire Strikes Back was a gymnast that actually did that scene in reverse. He actually did a back handspring and flew out the windows. Pretty incredible. But for those people to finally get their moment, because I think as mocap becomes more of a popular thing among trying to hide it less, it's not just a rendered thing. I think it's going to be an opportunity for a lot of people to say, hey, there are multiple actors that take these roles to the next level. And generally Hollywood has been pretty good about hiding a lot of stuff behind star power. And I think this was very encouraging to see. Curious your thoughts on that before we get to the rest of the cast, gentlemen.
Well, one of the many really kind of nice surprises about this film was, to your point, Adam, seeing that top billing from Brendan and Lateef. Mike, I want to know, what was that like in the Chinese theater? Did they get like a great big applause whenever?
Huge. The fact that I think from Brendan's standpoint, Lateef has been a little bit more. He's taken a little bit more of a back seat in terms of being out there.
Yeah.
But both of them have been at a ton of cons. They're not shy about saying, yeah, we're the Mandalorian. But Brendan has been. That dude is so excited to talk about his role. He has come on every podcast, big or small. He has been available for people to reach out and talk to him. He has been awesome. So for him to get, and of course those two names go up at the premiere, everyone goes crazy because especially those people know that is the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
You cannot say the Mandalorian and not think all three of their names at this point. And I think that's awesome.
You can really tell how proud Brendan is of this sort of physical language that he developed for Din. And, now that, folks like us have, spent 7 years with The Mandalorian, when you see the scenes, like you can tell that's Brendan. You see that sort of, like gunslinger swagger as he moves across the screen. And then you see those sort of staccato motions, the very fast and precise martial arts things that Lateef does. And you're like, that's Lateef.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, they are covered head to toe, can't see a bit of their humanity, and exactly who they are. And I was really stoked to see them get their flowers on this one. So
100%.
For those guys. Yeah.
And obviously from, I had that costume, I wear it. It's hard to wear. There's a lot of stuff on it. It is the fact that Lateef does all that stuff is mind blowing to me. And hopefully we talk to someone in the future about what gearing up Mando is like, especially for those heavy fight scenes. I have a feeling a lot of that stuff is stuck on. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's get to the rest of the cast. Of course, Jeremy Allen White. Many people know him from The Bear, from Shameless. He recently played Bruce Springsteen in a biopic. He was Rada the Hutt. Not a lot of change to his voice. It was very much his cadence, very much his delivery, which I thought was interesting.
Which I've never heard, so I feel like I was in a better position to accept that character than I think.
Sure. But if you watch one episode of The Bear, and you'll be like, that now you're going to think that's Rada the Hutt. Why is Rada the Hutt making a Chicago beef? What's going on here? Johnny Coyne. This is a funny Star Warsism. Johnny Coyne plays Lord Janu Coyne. So this is probably one of those things where Favreau's like, you got a pretty cool name. I think, I even think about our buddy Hunter, right? Hunter Smoke. You're like, all right, what's your real name? It's literally it.
Okay, well, that's it. Okay.
I didn't look up Johnny Coyne's other roles. Maybe he's just like Tony Danza. He always plays a guy named Johnny. You know what I mean?
Could totally work.
Yeah.
Martin Lawrence. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
In a reference to, of course, Rio Durant, the Ardinian from Solo, played by Jon Favreau. Martin Scorsese plays Hugo Durant, who is the other Ardinian shopkeeper that gives the flat meat sandwich and a little bit of information on where to find Rada the Hutt. Funny role. I don't know. I don't understand the logic. I don't know who asked who. I don't know why Martin Scorsese said yes, but I love everything about it.
This is so strange and surprising and ironic given what he said about the Marvel films, for example, that they're not cinema.
Sure, right.
They're something else. They're spectacle. They're a theme park ride. I mean, is this a relationship with Favreau where he's like, hey, man, you want to do me a solid? This would be really fun. But I think regardless of how and why it came together, I thought he was amazing. And I think Scorsese is actually a pretty damn good actor.
Yeah, he really is.
And it really reminded me of what's his name? Something Tommy Two Times or whatever from
From Goodfellas.
Goodfellas. Get the papers. Get the
I'm going to
papers.
go get the papers. Get the
Yeah.
papers. Yeah.
Get your shine box.
So
There was an SNL skit where they had a guy in there. His name was like Johnny 5 times because he said everything 5 times. So I'm gonna go get the papers. Yeah, whatever. Anyways,
but I wondered if the way he was kind of repeating himself, he would say a sentence and then he'd repeat it in a different version. It's like, I gotta go places. Maybe I go over here. Sometimes I go over there. It's like he comes here, I go there. Like, what do you want from me? I wonder if that kind of like multiple variation on the same thing kind of speech was an attempt to sort of connect the multiple arms, the redundancy of the arms,
That's a funny call.
in the redundancy
Yeah,
of his language.
Oh, possible. Like there's 4 hemispheres of his brain.
Right.
Yeah. That could be funny. I mean, I think really this character kind of plays into that, the iconic scene of Goodfellas, right, where it's Scorsese's mother, who is the
exactly what I
Italian,
was gonna say.
who is
Yep.
the Italian mother of like, well, you're covered in blood. What's happening? We hit a deer, Mom. It's really bad. He got the knife off. Blah, blah, which
He says, "Shut up, you're always talking." But it's
growing
much nicer in Italian.
growing up in an Italian family, that's incredibly accurate to how it is. And so I think the idea of like this Italian shopkeeper that's almost like befuddled with someone asking too many questions. You know what I mean? It's like the iconic of like, hey, do you have gluten-free bread? What is that? What is that?
Right.
What is gluten-free bread? Just but you get the sandwich or you don't get the sandwich. Like, and it's it's on point. And I think from that standpoint, it pays tribute to the fact that Mandalorian as a series has had a lot of gangster moments. It references a ton of gangster, a ton of Western. It's kind of that, all of that stuff wrapped in one. I think when you can't talk gangster movie and not think Martin Scorsese.
100%. Yeah.
So this tracks. So of course, legendary, one of the most iconic badass females, besides Princess Leia herself, Sigourney Weaver, Colonel Ward. I thought this was great. An X-Wing pilot, a colonel herself. And then, of course, our favorite little green guy, Grogu, played by himself. A couple other actors, specifically Hog's Breath, which I think is it Matthew Willard, who has, if you see him, he's a former football player that's done a lot of big stunt work in movies. He's been in 300. He's been in a lot of other movies that you need a big brute kind of a guy. Whereas Game of Thrones has been casting a ton of weightlifters, professional weightlifters, strongmen, European guys that are like just literally just giant humans. It's been pretty cool to see. So there's a lot of good little, people played in there. And then of course we have in the den, a couple more people that you maybe recognize when you saw the film.
Yeah.
Right? And Steve Bloom, of course, as Zeb Aurelius. Cannot forget him.
Yeah, lots of great voice work in this. Matthew Willig.
Willig.
I recognized this dude as soon as I looked him up. Yeah, he's in We're the Millers. Damn it, what else did I know him from? He's very...
When he was at the premiere, this dude stood at least shoulders above nearly everybody.
wow.
Yeah.
He's huge. I mean, it was one of those things. I looked over and I go, man, I've seen that guy before. And of course, not knowing the role that he was in. Plus, Katie Sackhoff is there. Timothy Olyphant is there. I'm like, oh my gosh, all this is happening. But it was cool for those guys to be able to come and experience it.
Yeah, he's that guy of like, henchman. Kind of, you'll see him
100%.
just
The
playing
enforcer.
like a tough guy, a bad guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great stuff. All right. Mike, you want to read the crawl, or Jason, you want to read the crawl as it appears on screen?
Oh,
can
please
take
do,
that.
Jason.
Let's go for it.
Please
Yeah.
do.
Here we go. Rolling it.
The evil galactic empire has fallen. Ex-Imperial warlords remain scattered throughout the galaxy, plotting the Empire's return. The fledgling New Republic has begun to reunite the galaxy. On the lawless Outer Rim, the Mandalorian and his young apprentice Grogu work to hunt down these Imperial fugitives.
Woo, 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 woo.
And crazy snow planet craziness ensues from there.
We're gonna get flagged because I did that.
Jason, what's your take on this style of crawl and title cards on screen in an opening sequence in a Star Wars film, especially given what Kathleen Kennedy mentioned a couple years ago now, that every new theatrical Star Wars film would have a traditional crawl.
Yeah, that is true. And I was expecting it. I don't know that I'm as wedded to it as maybe some of the other opinions that are out there right now about it. I think it's fine. I think it's okay. I also know now, just in the last week, just from some press that John and Dave have been doing, John clarified the position on that crawl, saying that the traditional vanishing point moving crawl is going to be reserved for saga films, which is fine, which also tells us, reading between the lines, there's going to be more saga films. So that's cool. And I think that's fine. The other one, with the opening titles, honestly, since the sequence that the opening titles was over was a blatant homage to our favorite film, Top Gun, my eyes were glued on every starfighter that was going across the screen, and droid and support staff and everybody on the base, that I actually didn't even notice it the first time I watched it.
Really?
So then I heard people talking about it, and I sort of took it in the second time, and it feels a little strange to me. It feels out of character for a Star Wars film. But now with a little bit of hindsight, and with 3 viewings in, I realize this is a different type of Star Wars film. And I think that these anthology films, these non-saga films, filmmakers can do whatever the hell they want. I mean, far be it for us to tell them what they should or should not do. But I think that there's a little more leeway to be able to sort of play fast and loose with these rules that maybe other filmmakers or George or whoever has sort of put on the saga films. And I think that it's okay to have a little separation. So that's just a long way of me saying, it's fine.
I think the first time we saw title cards in Star Wars with the planets being labeled in Rogue One, that was a little jarring, but it was done at a time when fewer people were watching feature-length films on their phones. It was done more stylistically to kind of fit in there. The font choice, Mike and I talked about this last week or the week before, whatever it was, not our favorite font choice.
Yeah.
I feel like if they would have done some kind of treatment, some kind of motion graphic treatment with Aurebesh flipping to the standard characters, it would have, and if it wasn't such a bold, kind of like disproportionately large for titles of this style type of thing, I would have taken it differently. I don't know. I'm so like, I can't not see things like this, just like, being a filmmaker and just worked on music videos recently that we're going back and forth about titles and font choice. So it's very much on my mind. So it distracted me from the amazing Top Gun sequence. It wasn't until my 3rd or 4th viewing that I really settled in and just kind of went with it.
That's interesting. I had the opposite reaction to it. It gave me vibes of like mid-'80s action serial. Like Wednesday night prime time, we're watching A-Team on CBS or something like that, which is the initial vibes that I got from Mandalorian season 1 whenever it first started too. So I think they were kind of going back to those basics with this.
Yeah, I think when you think about titles, opening titles, right? Like I would say probably one of the most prominent ones as of recent that has kind of the same problem is Alien. Alien's iconic, the single lines popping up and then they turn into letters, was repeated in Alien Earth. And that whole, even in isolation, they just announced a new video game, the same title treatment. So it kind of, Alien is, again, started in 1979, and that we're still doing the same thing that becomes a part of the brand. Stranger Things most recently did it with the ITC Serif Gothic or whatever that specific font was. But it becomes a part of the brand. And so I think it is interesting. It was definitely the Franklin Gothic or whatever they ended up using, did feel, in my opinion, I'm with you, Adam, for a movie as epic as this was in terms of details and scope, that was obviously a choice to go that basic.
Yeah.
And I don't totally agree that it was the right call. I know that it was probably a reference, but then eventually at this point, and we're going to talk about this, a lot of almost Tarantino level ripoff of references in some parts of it, and starting right with the opener of Jerry Bruckheimer's Top Gun, So from that perspective, I'm like, yeah, I can see it. I understand it. But in terms of moving forward, where we say non-saga films, we say saga films, what does that leave for Starfighter? Starfighter is already doing a different font. It's already doing a different interaction. It does have the splitting Star Wars with the, the letters in between. We started seeing that in the sequel trilogy. So it'll be interesting to see. This one seems to be more epic. This one seems like we're going to get traditional orchestration in the music. Heard a lot of really cool things from the ILM guys that said, hey, this was a technical spectacle, as some of them put it, but they said Starfighter is really incredible.
Hey, last thing, speaking of fonts, we went back and forth a little bit in the text chain about the non-standard Star Wars logo used in that Instagram reel.
Yeah.
That's the original.
Okay, so I was wondering.
The original teaser poster somewhere out there. It's happening. That's Star Wars.
Very clever.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yep.
The comments are hilarious. Actually,
the comments are all time.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. One more thing I want to talk about before we get into a little bit more discussion. I have a couple talking points here, and then we're going to get into the den. We're going to spend plenty of time there. I'm sure we're not just going to run through it. We're going to have stuff to discuss. I don't think we should get into box office numbers yet, because I'd rather wait until that's all wrapped up. We're gonna end up talking to a few people who worked on the film. There will be other opportunities, so I'd rather push that back. Rotten Tomatoes, though, I think it's worth taking a look right now where this stands in the ranking, the Rotten Tomatoes ranking. For the record, I don't give a shit about Rotten Tomatoes. I don't think it is a measure of whether or not something's entertaining or whether or not it's watchable or whether or not someone should watch it. It's just interesting. So the other two, you guys don't know anything about these standings. You probably can guess, and I'll have you do a little guessing. But it's very interesting to see where this ranks with the critic score and the audience score. If you had to guess what the number one highest critic score, because that's how this is ranked, which Star Wars film is that? What would you guess?
Probably episode 2. No, I'm with you. Well, okay, so hold on. So is this? So we're sorry, guys.
Nice.
Sorry. So
Well
it's Rotten Tomatoes is an aggregator. It assigns a number to just professional reviews or reviews that reach some sort of threshold that they can accept as a professional review. So are they? So if we're talking about episode 4, are they talking about reviews that came out in 1977, or are these more recent, or what? How are they categorizing these?
I don't know when they cut that off. That's a good question.
If they were contemporary reviews from the time, I would say that the original is probably number 1.
I'm going to say for press, actually, I think The Last Jedi is actually probably the highest ranked.
Okay.
Jason wins this round.
Okay.
Hey.
A New Hope has a 93% fresh
Okay.
score on Rotten Tomatoes, critic score.
Critic score.
What do you think the audience score is?
97.
96.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that checks out. That's fine.
Okay.
The number 2 in terms of critics makes me very happy, but is very surprising. A little bit more of a little bit wider gap, a little bit wider ratio between the critics and the audience score on this one. What do you think the number 2 highest rated? Well, I won't say any more words.
Okay.
I would say it's probably what you guessed, Mike. Probably TLJ. That was a critical darling for
Yep.
sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's
It is not. Actually, I'm going to reorder these because I don't think they were listed correctly.
Oh.
Just make up the rules.
Well, The Empire Strikes Back also has a 93%
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
with a 97% audience score.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
But directly below that, the one I was reading this in reverse order before, also with a 93%, The Force Awakens.
Interesting.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
But
And
84% from the audience.
from the audience. Oh, wow, that's so interesting. So the three of us, along with the other 2 guys, did a live watch party for the 10th anniversary of The Force Awakens back in December, and it was honestly one of the most fun times that I've had with you guys on this podcast.
Yeah.
And I was reminded how enjoyable and how rewatchable that film is. I'm surprised that the audience score isn't higher. It's in my top 3, I think.
Yeah,
top four for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
now we
it's
get
my
to
number
guess.
two.
So now we get to guess the Mandalorian and Grogu.
The Mandalorian and Grogu, 62% critic score. But guess the audience score.
I think audience score is probably an
The audience score
87
was-
or an 88.
Yeah, it was really strong for this film, right?
87.
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah.
You know, this is all to say, you know, as we go through these numbers and hear them and maybe disagree with them, it's like how important is it really? I guess that's the moral of the story, right? I mean, you know,
Yeah, I think it's all crap. It's a
Yeah.
waste of time, but
Right.
it is interesting.
yeah, completely. I mean, you know, and we, you know, Mike, I know that Solo is a comfort movie for you, and I mean, do you
100%.
think that critics aggregate is gonna, you know, affect the next time you sit down and watch that film? You know, I mean, you got to play the game as far as box office and critics and things like that in order to, you know, recoup costs and, you know, make sure that the franchise is viable and, you know, have like a pathway to, you know, make new projects and what they're going to be. Are they going to be streaming? Are they going to be in theaters or whatever? So, I mean, you can't completely dismiss them, but also it's like, nah, you know, who gives a shit?
Well, I mean, in this turns into a thing again where it's like, you know, what are the things that we hold dear, right? And we said this in our immediate review. We are too far in right now at this point that like you almost would have to make a conscious decision to really piss us off. Because we are like, Star Wars is back. It's awesome.
Yeah.
We're literally about to go through this den of antiquities and completely nerd out over this.
100%.
So we are not the people who are going to be like, I mean, we can talk about it until we're blue about like things that we liked and didn't like. And that's fine, but that's not going to change the fact that like in regards of saying what movie am I most excited for next, I have a great big list of Spielberg's new movie Disclosure Day, Masters of the Universe I'd like to go see. Project Hail Mary was amazing. I'm excited for Spider-Man. I'm excited for The Odyssey. I'm excited for all these movies, but what am I most excited about? Star Wars Starfighter. Like, let's be real here.
I'm most excited about whatever the next Star Wars film is, regardless of what it is.
Absolutely.
Just there's a hard, like deep into the soil steel barrier between number one and number two.
100%. And and then too, it's like, you know, like someone asked me like, hey, are you going anywhere for summer? Are you going anywhere this? I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, oh, you no plans? I said, well, I'm going to LA in April next year for Star Wars Celebration. I'm definitely going to that. So I think like at some point we're just, you know, looking at this. I think the nuance of what we're going to say is a victory is not going to be, the critics don't care. They're looking at a story.
Yeah.
They're looking at, but we know that Star Wars lives on and gets embellished through books, through video games, through short stories, through fan films, through all of these other things that will come as part of it. And so to say that the movie was a failure with that many people from California that worked on it,
no way.
Not.
Yeah,
Absolutely not.
No, not at all. And, you know, I mean, it starts to get under my skin a little bit, the people that use these numbers as a cudgel to, you know, sort of perpetuate, you know, some sort of, you know, negative narrative that they have about something. That kind of sucks. I mean, you can't give it too much oxygen and sort of put it out of mind. But, you know, I mean, this fandom is so holistic. It is so top to bottom. I mean, we just spent time talking about stunt performers and puppeteers and holding them in the same regard as legends like, you know, Sigourney Weaver on the same production. So
100%.
yeah, it's great. There's always going to be goodness there. So
I want to ask one more thing.
Oh boy.
I'm going to make an observation. I guess I'll just say this. I've been rewatching The Mandalorian. I watched quite a bit. I watched basically all of season 3 leading up to this. And I went back the other day while I was doing other stuff, just kind of in the background, watched all of season 1 and 2. Or all of season 1, got into season 2 a little bit. Man, what a different tone. Like a completely different tone. I think season 3 was obviously a big turn in terms of it becoming the Baby Yoda show. And whether that was, I mean, you know, because we heard rumors that the original plan was Mando was going to hand off Grogu and move on to another adventure. They had no idea the absolute like powder keg of fandom success that they had on their hands with introducing this character. Even the way he looked, he was more articulated. There was more CG. His hands were much like more organic. They didn't lean into the puppet quite as hard. You know, they did more of a hybrid. And I think even now when they're using CG, they're making the CG look like the puppet, you know, to match, you know, like the goofiness of him, banging on the back of Mando's helmet, like with the hand, like with the chubs.
Right,
So
right.
funny.
It's
Love
wooden
that.
hand.
clearly
you
a
know?
stick, like going too fat. You know what I mean? Ding,
Yeah.
ding, 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 ding.
I don't know. Do you guys have feelings about that? Have you watched any of the older stuff recently? Clearly season 3 was almost like a comic book come to life. The dialogue style, some of the way that Moff Gideon talked in the finale was very comic book villain. Any thoughts there?
It's been a while since I've gone back through and watched, especially season 1. I really need to go back and revisit season 1. But I was in watching this new film, I was reminded the things that I really loved about season 1 and season 2 to a lesser extent. And I felt like this film kind of got back to those basics. I mean, it was a closed-end story. This was, like an elongated, monster of the week sort of a thing, adventure of the week. And that was cool. People like to downplay season 3 a lot. I don't think that I had as much of a problem as some other folks.
Same.
Although my favorite episode in season 3 is the Lee Isaac Chung episode where they're on Coruscant, and I've been able to sort of examine that opinion over the last few weeks in dealing with sort of calibrating my expectations of this film and being at peace with the fact that it doesn't reach into the larger storyline. That particular episode in season 3, where it's Dr. Pershing and Elia Kane, and we're talking about the machinations of the Imperial Remnant brushing up against the New Republic, and their New Republic failing and sort of crumbling from this rotten core from within. I thought it was so interesting, and it was really reaching towards the sequel trilogy and reaching towards how the First Order comes up, and that kind of goes against the point of The Mandalorian and Grogu as a film, as just being fun popcorn romp. And yeah, I mean, there's room for both of those things, and I think that season 1 was lightning in a bottle, and I think that they captured a little bit of that same intentionality with this film.
I agree with that. I think, and I'm going to say it quickly. I think season 3 felt like we saw the politics of the Star Wars Disney performance metric. That was a pretty spicy turnover for Disney. That was the firing of one of the Bobs and getting the old Bob back. There was a lot up in the air, and I feel like in their plan of how to roll Star Wars out for the next half a decade, we kind of saw some of the politics at play. That's really, they had multiple productions that were happening. Skeleton Crew was coming out. What is the curiosity of Book of Boba Fett for season 2? We had Acolyte come out. That was an expensive production that kind of met a lot of really harsh critics. A lot was happening for Star Wars at the time. And I feel like Mandalorian season 3 was like, are we going to do season 4? Do we need to leave crumb trails for season 4? But now it's going to be a movie. And then Bob Iger wants to get really involved. It's hard to say exactly what happened for season 3. It's definitely the weakest of the 3 in terms of wanting to button it up. There were some great moments in it, but overall, season 1, especially the ending of season 2, it seemed like there were more politics at play. All of us knowing how productions work, it just seemed like there was a lot of different stuff happening. So for the most part, did this feel more like The Mandalorian to me than season 3? If I'm going to simplify it, it did. But I look at all of them as a part of the story.
Can I tell you one thing? We were talking, any of the, like we talk about our bingo card or any of the, predictions that we had for this film, they were all related towards story moving into the future. And we were off base on that. And we probably should have known that. We probably should have known that they weren't really going to give us stuff. But if there was going to be a post-credit scene, looking back towards season 3, I really wish that it could have been Din, coming out of the waters on Mandalore, because he had to remove his helmet, and, maybe he comes out of the water and Bo-Katan is standing there and she's like, ugh, what'd you do this time? Or something like that, right? Like that's all I could have wanted, right? That would have been cool. But anyways.
The one thing that I really, really wanted that I don't think it wouldn't have made it any less accessible to the average viewer who just wants to jump in and not have to do homework. I don't think it would have had any giant implications for the larger story moving forward, other than the personal story, which I think this focused around. the personal elements, I wanted Grogu to say one word, and I wanted it to be dad.
Nice.
Or daddy or something.
Sure.
You know?
That would have been an easy win for sure.
I mean, that was my prediction. I don't know how long ago when we talked about it, but that had to have been discussed. And I wonder if he's ever going to speak. I mean, there was a bit of a Chekhov's gun. You know, Mando said, "Oh, he doesn't talk." So in my mind, I'm like, he's going to talk when it matters. He's going to go Silent Bob style, you know? And he didn't. So I don't know. I want to know. I want to know. I would love to have been a fly on the wall when those discussions went down, because you know they happened.
And I think they're still happening.
Also, last thing I promise. Do you think Filoni looks at this film as an opportunity to sort of like a redo for the Clone Wars animated feature, which happens to have an 18% Rotten Tomatoes score and only a 41% audience score? Because it's basically the same story but grown up. Got to go rescue Stinky again and bring him back to the family.
It's possible. I mean, we've seen, you know, the slash of Vader's face revealing his very Anakin Skywalker, and we've seen that twice now at this point. I don't think they're afraid to go back and retell a couple stories. I think the fact that we're getting Darth Maul so heavily in Star Wars right now, it shows that like we're not afraid to go back.
As a wise man once said, interesting.
That's true. Okay, so we're 15 minutes in now. We haven't even gotten to the den. What is?
What are we gonna
That's my bad. I'm so
this
sorry.
is a Thank the Maker episode of ever. But you know what? The patrons are excited. This is the kind of stuff that they're into. You know,
We're stoked, and we like Star Wars. So let's get into it.
For over 1,000 generations.
It is the dark saber.
It's a Kalikori.
A Sith Wayfinder.
Dark science. Cloning. Secrets only the Sith knew.
Let's just kind of take turns and go in the order in which we're displayed on screen here.
I'm up first. Okay, the vehicle that the Imperial Warlord uses to escape the AT-AT Walker is an INT-4, which is based on the 1982 Kenner mini rig toy of the same name. And this is its first canon appearance. So much like that troop transport that was long only existing as a toy, we got to see that in The Mandalorian. So we have another example of that here in the film. Pretty cool.
Very nice.
a few of the New Republic recruits found in the Adelphi base have also helped bring the Mandalorian to life behind the scenes. Look at all these beautiful faces here.
Look at those
We
jackets.
have Lucasfilm president Dave Filoni as Trapper Wolf with the iconic hat that has if you see it up close, he's got little ammo. It's a little ammo belts in there. It's actually hilarious in every way. And then of course he has his Wolfpack pin put in there. I don't know if it's here in the movie, but the one that he wears in the movie, he was wearing at the premiere. Definitely tracks. The man sitting closest to us would be Lucasfilm art director. Pretty much all visual language of Star Wars has to go through Doug Chiang, who we are huge fans of. He is Lieutenant Blick. And as an artist, Blick, did they pay for this? Oh my gosh, the crossover here. This is crazy. So he goes by Lieutenant Blick, which cracks me up. Now, sitting around the table here, of course, we have Mandalorian episode directors. We have Deborah Chow as Sash Ketter from season 1. Most people will remember their introduction was the prison break scene in which the X-Wings come to destroy the prison after it has been overrun. We have Deborah Chow as Sash Ketter, Rick Famuyiwa as Jib Dodger. He's a huge LA Dodgers fan, which is where that came from. And then Lee Isaac Chung is Doc Surrey, which I think is great. Now, this person over on the right, I think is Doug's assistant, Michelle.
Oh.
Because I have talked to her, and I believe that's who it is. I have talked to her and actually sent Doug some fan-made posters that I was very pleased to find that he received and wants to make Lucasfilm pay for them to be framed. And I said, framing's expensive. Man's got good taste. Let it go. So I believe that's her as the last person at that table. But of course, Blue Milk, everything looks good. Cool to see them get their moment yet again.
Love those glasses as well. All right, here in the Adelphi base, around the bar, we have a handful of recognizable things, including an MSC droid, a mouse droid, up top there. off center, a probe droid head, dead center, several Imperial Stormtrooper and Scout Trooper helmets. Any variants there or like paint jobs? Like what's the one on the right with the stripes on the head? Is that anything you guys recognize?
I think those are just blaster marks.
Yeah, I did notice.
Cool
I think
stuff.
that there's at least one Mimban style TK helmet up there with that additional blast shield on the forehead. But otherwise, yeah, just some beat up TK helmets.
And also the top of a TIE fighter,
The top hatch.
which I think is hilarious. That's pretty
amazing.
cool. Yeah.
Amazing. Jason.
Actor Shirley Henderson, who voiced the first Anzellan, Babu Frick, in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, as well as the trio of droid smiths in The Mandalorian Season 3, returns to voice all 4 Anzellans. Minch, Bai, Keto, and the newcomer Clang in The Mandalorian and Grogu. Speaking of which, the name Minch comes from an early draft of The Empire Strikes Back, where Yoda was originally named Minch Yoda. Look at that guy. Looks like
Oh man.
a little garden gnome. That's awesome.
They were gonna make him a chimpanzee. They were gonna make him all kinds of stuff. This is some terrifying stuff. Now, if you're wondering who the actor is, Shirley Henderson, she is the actor. She's been in a ton of British shows, murder shows, particularly, as I've heard. But she is also most famously probably known over here as Moaning Myrtle from the Chamber of Secrets in Harry Potter.
Oh, all right.
Nice.
Right?
43% burnt Anakin nailing that in the patron chat. Well done.
Hey, did you guys notice that in this film, the Anzellans had more discernible dialogue? It
sure.
seemed like almost everything they said was English.
Come on, baby. We'll be back.
Yeah. I mean, big bite. Huh? I mean, that was, it just brought the house down where I was. It's so,
100%.
so funny. But yeah, it used to be more kind of minion-like where you only understand like, every other word or whatever, and then you sort of understand the context of it. But in this film, they were mostly speaking English, which was interesting.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean, they've been practicing,
Yeah, probably.
Hey.
A lot of good business on Navarro.
Yeah,
or
that's
basic,
true.
I should say. They were speaking basic.
Basic. They're speaking basic. Okay, cool. This is a cool one. The air traffic control droids who gave the Mandalorian, Grogu, and Zeb clearance to land on Nal Hutta to meet with the twins are voiced by Anthony Daniels, continuing the only actor who has now been in every single Star Wars movie.
Quite a run.
Moment. Quite a run. I think this is going to work out for him. Pretty exciting on that part, but I also like that it wasn't an obvious, you wouldn't have caught that unless you checked out the credits, which I think is really fun.
Rod of the Huttlet at the time first appeared in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the animated film directed by Dave Filoni, 2008 release. That feature launched the series by the same name and introduced Jabba the Hutt's son, nicknamed Stinky, like we said earlier, as well as Ahsoka Tano.
I was listening to a podcast last week or the week before. It might have been Blast Points. I can't remember who it was that said it, but whenever Rada decides that he's going to volunteer and work for the New Republic, Zeb says that he's going to find a uniform for him, right?
Yeah.
And they were commenting on how it would be so apropos if he gets one of those, Republic era backpacks. So then Rada will wear the backpack instead of being in the backpack.
Nice.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Classic.
Make it happen. Make it happen, guys.
Also, little Stinky in the hollow here, before he hit his growth spurt, the model that was used, the little maquette, I guess, was hand painted by none other than Jon Favreau.
This one, I thought the modeler of it, or who sculpted it, was Guillermo del Toro.
Well, I'm just reading the notes here, dog.
Interesting. We got to look this up.
Guillermo could have sculpted it. Maybe John painted it.
Sure.
Maybe it was a collab between filmmakers. Who knows?
I like that.
Okay. All right. Next one. The creatures that Din and Rada are forced to battle in the Dajaric match in the arena are real-life versions of the pieces of the Hollow Chest Dajaric game seen in the Millennium Falcon, of course. During the fight, one creature does the exact same body slam move that R2's game piece did to one of Chewie's pieces in their game during A New Hope, at the famous "Let the Wookiee Win" moment. And I think that's the Kintan Strider that lifts up one of the smaller ones over his head and slams it down. Yeah.
What's really fun about it is when I had what I would consider normies who like Star Wars. They were like, wow, the battle scene in the arena was so cool. And I was like, what's cool about it? Here's the picture. And I showed one of the press shots. And I said, no, check this out. And I showed them R2 and 3PO and Chewbacca in A New Hope. And they were like, wait, what? And I go, join us, will you?
Yeah.
It's like this all over the galaxy, all over the saga. So it's really fun for people to kind of have that light bulb moment. It's pretty amazing.
What was cool for me, like the flip version of it, is because I opted out of watching trailers. When he said it's going to be a Djarik match, I was like, whoa, we're going to see it. We're going to see all of them is going to happen, you know? So it was cool. Like, hey, guys, stop watching trailers. It's way cooler. Audience, listen. It's way cooler. So
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure here, right before the recording of this episode tonight, Adam said to us, "Oh man, did you guys notice that the floor of it, the floor of the arena looked like the holochess table?" And Mike and I were like, "Oh yeah, that's right. You didn't watch any of the trailers," because we were all like totally geeked about this like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Trailer breakdown, everything.
Yeah,
we were talking
we're like,
about it.
look at that, it's insane.
Yeah,
They're actually going to do the whole thing. Anyways,
Yeah. So speaking of the Djarik creatures, the stop motion, the miniature work was heavily featured in The Mandalorian and Grogu, was done by Tippett Studio, headed by legendary Lucasfilm alum Phil Tippett. And there he is with the original pieces. Of course, our friend Kate Savicker helped work on these as well. We'll have her on to talk about that. But it is such a cool thing for Favreau to continue to go back to Phil, as crusty as he is, and have him so heavily involved in Star Wars at this point, considering that is where his big breakthrough in the industry was. Iconic work, stop motion work, and then leading all the way up until probably the big decisive moment was Jurassic Park, and a really interesting story behind that. But it's cool that Favreau continues to say we need Tippett Studio for Tetanus, the Mama Crab in Skeleton Crew, the Djarik table in Force Awakens, and so many other things that we'll get to later. But it's really awesome that Phil Tippett is still just as part of Star Wars as it was in the beginning.
Hey, one more thing from 43% Burnt Anakin in the chat. He suggests that the Djarik holochess game in universe was created who knows how many years ago based on this style of arena fighting. You know, just like you'd make, you make table hockey or whatever based on hockey, of course.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see. I'll throw this in. For people who don't know how important Phil Tippett is to Star Wars, he was the co-creator and the animator of the stop motion holographic chess scene in A New Hope. That was his idea. Probably most prominently known, featured and behind the scenes, is that he was the head of ILM animation in Empire Strikes Back, developing the technique called Go Motion that animated the AT-AT walkers and the Tauntauns. That led to the animation, heading to the creature shop for Return to the Jedi, designing several creatures, including the Rancor and Jabba the Hutt himself, not the original version of the large man, kind of has like a Mongolian style fur coat. Just seeing Jabba the Hutt as a giant slimy creature that would later have a child, voiced by Jeremy Allen White. But Phil this was all from Phil's brain. And then eventually Tippett Studio was tasked with creating and animating the sentry droids that protected the Hutt's twins' throne room in The Mandalorian Grogu. And we talked about this pretty extensively, seeing Din run in full frames per second compared to what they were doing. You could see the difference in how they were animated, but the fact that ILM blended them together, unbelievably cool. Tons of little, spinning parts, the way that they walked, the way that their heads moved, everything about it was awesome. So huge shout out to Tippett Studio for once again blowing our mind in terms of what is capable with miniature work.
Beautiful. The design for the Moon of Shikari resembles Prohibition-era Chicago and which was what inspired director Jon Favreau and his time in the city. Pretty rad. Shikari, Chicago, there it is. I thought this was just speculation. It's cool to hear that it's actually legitimately where it came from.
Yeah, they did a great job kind of replicating the famous L elevated train there in town. And yeah, it's just got very similar vibes. Hugo Durant, the four-armed character that Din talks to in the food truck style stall outside the arena on Shikari, is a species called Ardinian. As we heard Mike say earlier, the first Ardinian seen in Star Wars in Solo was named Rio Durant, and he was voiced by Jon Favreau. As yet, there's been no specific mention of the character's relation aside from the shared last name. So, I mean, for all we know, all Ardinians' last name is Durant. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that we can headcanon this.
He's got so many kids. He said it.
Yeah, 12 of them, little ones.
Yeah, it's true.
The flat meat sandwich, of course, that we would later come to find out was helped develop by one of Jon Favreau's favorite celebrity chefs, Roy Choi. I mean, this looks delicious. I know Adam, as a vegan, this was probably one of those things you look at and go, yeah, maybe. But, if we are able to make it with tofu or something along those lines, I'm sure it's just as delicious. The point is that I think it was really the blue onions that really sold it, for the green onions that I think sold it for me. And then when you put it on top, they kind of melt in. I was like, all right, I want that. The gooey golden sauce that Hugo spreads onto the flat meat sandwich is yolk from a mudhorn egg, which you can see on the counter to his left when he dips into it. You can see it in this frame if you're watching, the bottom right. That is a mudhorn egg.
Still got the fur on the outside.
Still got the fur. This is probably why the Jawas were so excited. They just eat it like a bunch of ravaging creatures right out. But, Hugo over here is making it a real delicacy.
Suka.
I didn't clock it as egg yolk the first time I watched it. I thought it was like Cheese Whiz.
Whiz.
But I mean, I'm a sucker for queso dip. So maybe I was just hungry when I was watching.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I thought it was Thousand Island.
No, sure.
The popcorn-like snack that Grogu eats during Rada's gladiator match appears to be, not confirmed yet, Mantell Mix, which was first seen in Star Wars The Bad Batch, eaten by Omega here, and is available as Outpost Mix, quote, Outpost Mix, at Galaxy's Edge. I mean...
Come on.
Yeah,
It's
the exact same thing. I mean, I guess you call, Coca-Cola, Cola, Pepsi, whatever, tomato.
Mike, I'll let you take this one because I think that you spotted some a bunch of interesting things in this next clip.
Sure. So let's get into, of course, anytime we see an armory of any sort, we're gonna lose our minds over this, right? So of course the Din grabs this kind of short shield and saber that ends up being part of his reintroduction to the Black Series. It's now the new accessories. Actually, our friend Luke Daly over at JJ Industries is actually making the double-sided knives, which I think is really cool. But this one almost looks like, in this particular shot, there's a very large sword. Almost has like I would say almost like an Indian kind of, with the curvy blade that we see in a lot of the, classic movies, actually is, which I think is probably a little Easter egg to people who worked on the film, is modeled off the blades of chaos used by Kratos in God of War, which I think is pretty cool. It's a way of either the modelers or someone had some kind of connection. I think that's really great. It looks awesome. It's got the little bite marks out of it. And this could be inspired by it, or this could be some kind of connection of saying, bring it into Star Wars. Now, what ends up becoming really cool with this is that the spear kind of behind Din Djarin, if we look at it, is very similar to the spear that Savage Opress uses. And it kind of has the double-sided blade that almost looks like, to Jason's point, we were putting this in here, a seam ripper, which I think is pretty terrifying in its own way, a giant seam ripper. But also, if you take out the middle staff, then the double blade is pretty interesting. And it kind of seems like it could be inspired by it. Now, over Din's actual shoulder, the shape of what seems to be an electric prod is almost identical to the electrical prod that Rose Tico uses to fry Finn so that he can't get on the escape pod. So it's very similar. It's got these kind of rough, almost like these layered edges, and it looks like they put it on a staff. But in terms of the size of the two electric prods, very similar, which I think is great. Now, in terms of in-universe, we're still very much the double-sided blade. We've seen the Praetorian Guards use them in The Last Jedi. But this one, we can 100% confirm, because this is almost exactly what it is. Let's see. If we're looking from the left, we're about four staffs in. In classic Filoni Favreau fashion, we already saw the INT-4. We saw the Rebel the Trooper transport. They want to go deep with their toys. This particular model right here,
Fourth from the left,
is the Skiff Guard. We're figuring this out, but I think the two little dots at the bottom is one of the Klatooinian Skiff Guards from Return of the Jedi. Now, the top is also very similar, and I think the build is almost exactly the same. The top of Bush's staff when Leia goes undercover in Jabba's palace. So this could be one of those things where, hey kid, it's not that kind of movie. They just had the Klatooinian wear, just hold that staff. It looks scary. The bottom is different. And so being that these were filmed at different times, they could have just swapped the bottom out and kept the top. But these, if you look at the picture going back to the Mandalorian and Grogu, that top, that kind of, the different ball and the little shorts, that is exactly it.
I mean, think about all the parts they swapped out between like
lightsabers,
Han's blaster, like Luke holding almost an identical DL-44 at some point. Like, yeah, of course 100%. They're going to do it with background.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a great call.
Yeah.
Embo, the Kyoso hunter, first appeared in Star Wars: The Clone Wars animated series during the season 2 episode Bounty Hunters, and Embo kind of gets treated a lot like Boba Fett in Empire Strikes Back in this film. He kind of shows up, does his business, is a complete badass, and then disappears. Nobody ever says his name. He barely says one word. The only word that he says is actually the name of his pet, Kaibu. That dog-like creature, by the way, prowling with Embo in this film is a species called Nanuba, and her name is Kaibu. He used to have another pet in the Clone Wars. That pet's name was Marok. I'm assuming that was maybe just going to be a little too confusing for folks who have got to know the first brother now through Ahsoka and Maul Shadow Lord. So
right.
So he's got a new doggy now, and her name is Kaibu.
Hey, lots of dogs have human names. Works out.
Yeah.
All right. The Turtle Tanker, which is the gunrunner ship that takes Rada back, that then crashes, and Grogu discovers it while Mando's unconscious. They go in, and then those little nasty little underwater creatures come up. What are they called?
That's the Amani.
Yes. This turtle tanker ship was first seen in season 4 of the Clone Wars, an episode called Brothers. We know who those brothers are.
Yes, we do. Jason, is that you?
Yeah, it can be me. If you look closely, you'll notice that the Whistling Bird launcher on Din's left gauntlet is empty, suggesting that they have yet to been replaced since he fired all of them and they were removed during season 3 of The Mandalorian. This was another one of those things that Mike and I had clocked early on during that first trailer. And yeah, they just they took that story beat from season 3. I think that it was whenever he was infiltrating the facility where Gideon was. At one point, he was stripped of his weapons, and yeah, now instead of there being a blank spot, there's a little bit of a detail there, but now all the Din Djarin costumers are going to have to get a second gauntlet to be screen accurate for this film. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Here we go again. But I like the continuity. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, cool. And it's cool to think about if he's been working for the New Republic, he hasn't been back to see the Armorer. He hasn't really interacted with the other Mandalorians maybe in the interim between the end of season 3 and this. So that gives us a better idea of what's been going on.
Yeah, I dig that. Now, Jason, I'm going to volley this back to you as our resident pilot, because this is a pretty cool little detail here on the Y-Wing.
Yeah, the Y-Wing. So that was
story.
Yeah, Lee Isaac Chung, the director that I was talking about that had my favorite episode of Mando season 3. He also had an episode in Skeleton Crew as the squadron there from the base is attacking the Hutt's fortress on Now Hutta. Colonel Ward calls out to Lee Isaac Chung's character and says, blue leader to red jammer. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because famously, the red jammer is the name given to the very first Y-Wing Starfighter studio model that was built by ILM in 1976 for A New Hope. ILM actually built this specific model as a paint and detailing prototype to guide the fabrication of the remaining X-Wing fleet. Because it was only a paint guide, and you can see this in this photo for those of you that are watching, it was never fully completed. You can see that its starboard side lacks full mechanical detailing. It's just sort of a smooth engine there. The droid socket just has a blank gray dome on it instead of a finished astromech. In George Lucas's original script and novelization, the Y-Wings belonged to Red Squadron, and the X-Wings were blue. However, in early blue screen special effects technology, they struggled to cleanly separate the blue markings from the background. So they ended up swapping all the paint details on the remaining Y-Wings to yellow, and then they renamed that group Gold Squadron, famously in that final film. So Jon Favreau got to find out that this original model was actually being rehabbed to be on display at the Lucas Museum in Los Angeles. So he was able to get permission to grab this, photograph it, and model it for use in this film. So the very first Y-Wing, which had never been on screen, finally, 50 years later almost, got its major motion picture debut in The Mandalorian and Grogu.
That's incredible, dude.
Yep, that's so cool.
That's one of the coolest Easter eggs, digging up old stuff, playing with the toys in the Dave and John sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the number one out of any of these. The fact that it's the actual original model is incredible.
Yeah,
I love
amazing.
That so much.
And these, every once in a while, one of these original studio scale models will come up for auction. I think just last year, one of them, was
the Pyro model.
It was the Pyro model, and this thing went for over $100,000. So these things are absolutely priceless. Like, stars of that original film. I mean, the way that they were able to, leap forward in terms of VFX in 1977, and this being a direct descendant of those strides that ILM made back in the late 70s is so cool. And we'll get to see it soon on display in the museum. That's going to be great.
Yeah.
Damn right.
And of course, Jason and I are going to sit there and we're going to go, hey, how come all the pilots have X-Wing helmets? That was something that we saw. The details of finding, I guess the question was that R2 and Red 5 at the beginning of the movie?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? Because I thought it was immediately, I'm like, that's R2, and that's going in Luke's X-Wing. If Luke is in it, R2 can fly the thing on its own. So I was kind of like, I feel like that's a call, because you don't see many silver and blue astromechs. That is very much a choice to go. R2 is those colors.
That's right, and all of those sort of patchwork, metal, different, yellows and grays, and then the red stripes that are on those original Red Squadron Yavin. Battle of Yavin X-Wings are unique. And if you look side by side, I'm sorry, folks, that I didn't prepare this for this episode. I was just thinking about it now. You can actually match up the how the red stripes are similar in what we see in Mandalorian and Grogu with Luke's Red 5 X-Wing. So yeah, maybe.
So what are you thinking? Like 90% confirmed? Are you confident?
I think I'm pretty confident in
I'm
that.
with you on that, 100%.
It's got to be. Yeah, it's a fun thing.
Nice. Yeah. That's rad.
And
I'll do this last one since
let's do it.
I wasn't part of the trailer breakdown. I didn't see this. The two Imperials in the film, the unnamed warlord in the opening scene and Lord Janu Coin, both appeared in The Mandalorian Season 3 in the Holo meeting with Moff Gideon as part of the Shadow Council. And we see them right here. Here's some close-ups on the right. Same actors, same characters. There they are. So,
and that warlord in the bottom right there that was on the snow planet, his name is Commander Barrow, or Barrow, Barro.
Got it.
Played by Hemke Madera, same guy who was in Mando. Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
Nice. So they were both in the trailer, I assume.
They were.
Yes.
Got it. Yeah. All right. I mean, I get to have all this extra fun afterwards instead of, seeing the movie and being like, okay, now what's next? So I'm having a good time, guys. Stoked. All right. We've gone very, very long, but we need to do a little I Love You, I Know from some of the patrons. So let's get into that really quickly, and then we'll get out of here and do a little bonus segment.
I love you.
I know.
Favorite scenes, favorite quotes, favorite moments, whatever. The favorite things from the film. Let's do a few that we haven't heard from at all yet on Thank the Maker. Snips, the first one. I don't think screen name Snips has been heard from, correct?
I don't believe
Tracks.
so. Hmm?
There we go.
Hey guys, Snips here. Just want to pop by and say my favorite part of Mando and Grogu, besides the Anzalians, love them, would have to be just the excitement of watching Star Wars on the big screen again.
Absolutely. Shared feeling.
For sure.
Great screen name. Not Mark the Intern. Throwback. Incredible.
Hello there, it's not Mark the Intern. Ultimately, I love the movie. I enjoyed it a lot. It felt like one big, long episode of Mandalorian. But at the end of it, I think it's just a celebration for Star Wars being back in the theaters, being able to sit down with a bucket of popcorn, friends, family, and just enjoy Star Wars in the theater.
Again, going back to who we are and what we want out of it as compared to critics or anyone else in the mainstream viewer base, mainstream demographic. It's just good. Just feels good.
I keep hearing anecdotes about how young people in particular are really connecting to it in a very special way, especially that scene in the center where a lot of the dialogue comes out of it. And Grogu is tending to his father who's been poisoned. And kids, feeling the worry and really sort of riding the emotion of those scenes is touching and encouraging, and all the things that Star Wars is supposed to be. And I found that surprising and super cool.
And even in a comatose near-death situation, there's still room for a little levity. Sometimes you accidentally bang your dad's head against the wall a few times before
Exactly.
you got to throw some leaves on his feet.
He spent all that money on the helmet. Might as well test it out.
This next patron, I don't know what the screen name means. Kyle? Kyle?
Because his name is... Wait.
I'm making a joke. It's flopping. It's okay.
Nice. Nice.
His name's Kyle, guys. All right.
Kyle.
Hey guys, it's Kyle. My 3 favorite moments in The Mandalorian and Grogu include Grogu tapping on Din's helmet in the AT-AT, seeing the Razor Crest again in action, taking out Janu's forces in the sky, and then finally the Jajark match. Such awesome to see those creatures and to see Rada and Din fighting together. 2 moments that love as well is Rada and Grogu on the beach. That's so adorable. And then finally the dragon snake swallowing the 2 huts. Did not see that coming. Made both of my parents gasp when we were watching it. Love the podcast. Have a good show.
Pretty awesome. Yeah.
That is true.
Parents, that is pretty gnarly if you think about it. And the lumps in the neck, that's great.
Yeah, totally. When it went back underwater, you're like, they're both definitely still in there.
Yeah.
And there was great timing with it too, because you see the one lump and then there's like a beat and then it's like, oh, there's 2. It's so gnarly.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting, Zeb, it's the fact that we haven't talked about Zeb really at all is, I don't want to say it was a letdown, but I wanted more Zeb. He kind of was just a bit of a courier, a bit of a cab driver. And, there's a line of dialogue in there that kind of like speaks to that. It's kind of a meta line, I've had about enough of these hot extractions or whatever. Yeah, I can't wait to see more Zeb. I'll put it that way.
Agreed. He looked amazing.
Yeah, really did.
Yeah, really good. One more from Paradox, who I feel like we've only heard from once quite a while ago.
Hey, what is up, Thank the Maker? This is Dax, aka Paradox. While there are so many things that I loved about this movie, I have to give it to the Anzellans. They are so great, and every time they popped on the screen, I was laughing, I was rolling. It was so good. I need a whole little mini-series of these guys. Give me more, please. And I'll just close that with Big Pipe, huh?
We are laughing.
That is a problem. What's kind of fun is like they've almost kind of gotten to like Jawa level acceptance in terms of like, they have they have ways to communicate, but you understand them.
Yeah.
And I think in that sense of like the battle or the pit droids have kind of been that filler in between, right? They are almost complete comic relief. but they have personalities, and I think it's really fun that we've got between Jawas, pit droids, the naughty, we've got Anzellans. It has been a really, really, really fun ride for little creatures.
Dude, I almost forgot to mention this until we started talking Anzellans. Going back to the miniatures, I thought it was brilliant. Like, obviously, because like Favreau said, I don't know if you guys saw the interview clip, whether it was a reel or whatever, talking about how you can get away with a level of camp in Star Wars. There's an amount of latitude that you have tonally to get away with some really goofy stuff because of where George set the bar 50 years ago and the palette that has been laid out to paint with tonally, in terms of like, something that allows you to put a big giant praying mantis called Dr. Mandible at a bar, with no clothing, no helmet, just a big bug, or, something like the Anzellans flying in on a ship that is small because they're so tiny. You can make a joke of that. It's goofy. They can be these goofy puppets. That model is obviously like, maybe this big. I can hold it with my arms, right? And the way it was animated and shot, the focal length, the depth of field, it makes it so obvious that it is a miniature, and they're making no attempt. They're like purposely making no attempt to make it look large. So you see it kind of like wobble in the wind as it comes into the atmosphere, and it looks like something from like Thumb Wars or whatever. Remember that thing? Or like, it'd be a goofy spoof thing. Like it's from Spaceballs or something. They made it look like a miniature on purpose because it's a tiny little spaceship, and there's like this subtle subconscious joke there. You know what I mean? Did you guys notice that at all?
Yeah, it was handled great, and that was Dave Filoni's job on this film. He was second unit director in charge of all the puppet shots, so he was doing that. And it was also interesting to see at the end of the credit crawl, the first person in the special thanks section was J.J. Abrams, and it came out that he was actually brought on set to consult about the Anzellans specifically, because those are his guys. I mean, he invented those for Episode 9, so.
That's great.
Yeah, really sort of taking those original ideas and running with them and making them an important part of the canon and the legacy for the future is awesome.
It's awesome.
All right, what about favorites for you guys? Let's run this really quickly and get to the bonus segment.
Mine is the Mud Igloo, and that whole section, that whole without dialogue, just pure emotion and images. And I thought it worked. It worked beautifully. It was wonderful. And I didn't think that was going to be my favorite until maybe the second or third time that I saw it. And my mind kept going back to that. And it was great. I thought it worked wonderful.
Hard balance for me between the opening. I thought Din just, kicking ass and destroying the AT-ATs, and also seeing the new snowtroopers was super cool. The AT-RT, him going down the mountain with that. And then also, like, I would say it contrasts really hard. Like, anytime I see a squadron of X-Wings come in, I'm like, awesome. But I think for me, it's like, there was kind of a throwback to the first time we saw Din. The entire hallway scene of him just, knocking snowtroopers out. It was pretty violent. I was actually super kind of shocked actually at how like he's straight up stabbing people. It was pretty, I was like, whoa, this is pretty intense. But all in all, I mean, just seeing AT-AT's back, seeing the updated Snow Commander, all of that was just like, that is super cool to me. I was surprised that they took out the lieutenant or the admiral or whatever that quick. But all in all, like, if you wanted to see Star Wars back on the screen, that was the perfect way to do it.
Absolutely. I, in classic form, I'm going to kind of give two answers, but they're part of one larger answer. I think the miniature that was used outside of the hut's front door, the Tippett stuff that Kate worked on specifically, it's the kind of thing that knowing the behind the scenes makes me enjoy it more. It makes me have more appreciation for the craft, and we'll talk in depth, I'm sure, about this with Kate. Knowing that was a miniature that was the size of this table, maybe, and those robot sentries or whatever are maybe 18 inches tall. Seeing that, what I think is obviously a scan and then projection in the volume, Din running full speed, interacting full speed, camera movements, knowing that they had to do that with motion control and do the math to get the scale right and then composite it all together, a rear projection, stop motion, and then CG layers all over that is like, I mean, that's the kind of movie making that I'm here for. And I just like cannot get enough of that shit, and it's pure magic to me. So I love that. And that's all part of the larger thing about this being a film that took advantage of every different type of trick you can do in the movie magic, magician's bag of tricks, and do it so effectively and in such like a campy, endearing way that's still emotionally compelling, where you can have like a 30-minute stretch with no humans and you're still invested, you're still on board. And I'm talking about like some non-humans that are goofy. Like the only human you have on screen has a mask on. And Jason, to your point about, the mud hut and Grogu being on his own, none of that stuff's possible without the world being set up the way George did 50 years ago. And people like George, people like Jim Henson, people like Stan Winston, like all of these like heroes of special effects and puppetry and all these things from the past 5 decades that make this possible. And to see it coming back around, despite the fact that George himself tried to go full CG with the prequels and set up that world, the cyclical nature of craft work and artisanship makes for some really fun intersections over time of like the cycles of things. And I think this is a really special one. So that overarching kind of creativity, filmmaking, movie magic vibe is my favorite.
I back that 100%.
All right. We won't wait long. We're going to do, like I said, a little discussion about Gareth Edwards, his quotes about AI and how that's been pretty polarizing. It'll be a hoot. It's going to be great. We're not going to waste time with a bunch of crap here at the end. We'll just see you next week, maybe with a special episode of a sister podcast, a guy who's pointing and raising his hand.
We're very excited to say that Armor Party is coming back.
There it is.
And that's all we're going to say. Jason and I are very excited. We've been talking about a lot of guests that were coming on. So it will be broadcast through Thank the Maker, which is fun. We'll be trying to redo the socials as much as we can. It was a timing thing up until this point when I jumped on as full time. But for the most part, we have a lot of great conversations that we have in the deck. We're stoked that it's coming back. A lot of people have been asking for it. Relax. We heard you. Give the people what they want, and what they want is details and costumes and all that stuff. So Armor Party is back. Looking forward to bringing that show back to life as a Night Sister Magic, reanimated back in the airwaves.
Green gas coming out of every crevice. All right. Until then, may the Force be with you. Thank the Maker is produced by Adam Russell and Jason Chiodo, and edited by Jason Chiodo. If you enjoy the podcast, you can support us by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Or you can support us directly at patreon.com/thankthemakerpod, where you can get access to our Discord server, exclusive content, exclusive merch, and more. Our patrons literally make Thank the Maker possible.